Hello, my name is John Paul Howard, and today I'm going to be talking about a Bloomberg article and how it relates to what we learn in Chapter 16 of Human Resources Management. The article is called McDonald's Workers Want OSHA to Investigate Pattern of Violence and was written by Josh Idelson. First, let's begin with some background information on the situation. The way that McDonald's structures their fast food restaurants is heavily reliant on franchising. In fact, more than 90% of McDonald's locations are franchise properties. This lack of direct ownership by McDonald's has served to shield them in some situations in the past when they were challenged due to actions committed by one of their franchisees. In fact, a judge in a federal appeals court recently ruled that McDonald's is not necessarily liable for the things that happen to their employees that operate in a franchise location, as they are technically in the employment of the franchisee and not the McDonald's corporation itself. While you chew on that McNugget of information, I will also add that in 2003 the company decided to shift to being open 24 hours a day instead of being open from only 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. in order to increase profits through existing franchises instead of opening new locations to try to achieve the same result. It is also worth noting that about 40% of incidents that allegedly endanger the workers takes place between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. To summarize the article, it focuses on the grievances of the employees in a Chicago franchise and their complaint to OSHA about how they believe the company is ignoring the unsafe working conditions that put them in danger. The article also talks about how many employees believe that the company has taken actions that directly jeopardize their safety. One example that is given was the previously mentioned decision to stay open 24 hours a day, which exposes them to the additional 40% of violent outbursts, as these stores would not have been open had the decision not been made. The article points to this combination of poor decision making and careless inaction as a driving force behind a 13-city employee walkout that lasted for one day, as well as several lawsuits that have been brought forth against McDonald's by their employees. As this whole situation is relatively recent, there are not really any final outcomes to be spoken of. That being said, the company has committed to rolling out what they believe to be a comprehensive training program that will teach employees how to safely deal with situations that may otherwise be considered dangerous if not dealt with properly. Many employees consider this new training regimen to be merely a band-aid attempting to fix a big problem, and therefore have continued to engage in many protests over this issue, in addition to the initial one-day walkout. There does exist a possibility for the government, namely OSHA, to punish McDonald's for their worker safety violations, as well as the possibility that the workers could be awarded compensation in their pending legal disputes against McDonald's Corporation for damages they may have suffered while working there. Needless to say, either of those potential outcomes would not be good for McDonald's public relations, and because of this, as well as some other basic moral considerations on behalf of the company, it is also possible for McDonald's to implement a systematic change to its employee safety policies. This article does indeed relate in many ways back to Chapter 16, which covered safety, health, and risk management, and I'm loving it. The first way in which this article is relevant to the chapter is through the general role of OSHA as a regulatory body. This article talks about how the employees triggered an investigation by the government through reporting what they believe to be unsafe working conditions. This goes to show that employees have an avenue to protect themselves through governmental regulations, and that employers are responsible for the safety standards within their own working areas, or they will usually have to face hefty penalties. Some other elements this article touches upon are how external risk can compromise the safety of employees, and some measures of structural design can help to secure the facility to reduce this risk. Examples to this end were given when some employees suggested that the counters can be made to be higher to prevent people from being able to easily hop over them and access the working areas. Another example that was given was the change in the way the drive-through windows operate so that the employee does not necessarily have to open themselves up to direct contact with the customer, especially late at night when it is hard to see what is going on outside. The final way that this article relates back to the chapter is that it highlights the need for preventing and dealing with violence and showing the effect that violence can have on the mindset of the employees, to the point where that many of them are afraid to even go to work because of their fear. I am now going to wrap this presentation up by discussing my thoughts on the issue. In my opinion, the workers who are complaining about the unsafe working environment have a genuine point. From what I can tell, there are many ways that McDonald's could improve the operations of each individual restaurant that could potentially protect many of their employees, if not all of them. It would be a cop-out to stick to the idea that they are not liable for the safety of their employees, as they control many of the aspects of each individual franchise location. As far as I am aware, McDonald's controls the menu of every single franchise that operates under their name. They control the advertising through one centralized campaign, and they even stipulate the design of every single McDonald's building and the uniforms of every single McDonald's employees. So I pose the question, is it really a big leap to suggest that they would be able to adopt the responsibility of forcing every franchisee to enact additional safety requirements to prevent the violence? Another interesting point I would like to address is how the well-being of workers is being negatively affected due to these issues not being resolved. Along with the culture of reported sexual harassment that has plagued McDonald's in many countries in which they operate, the fact that workers spend so much of their time fearing for their own safety can lead to serious mental health problems developing, and it makes me question if it is worth dealing with all this just for a job at McDonald's. To conclude, I think that the corporate decision makers at McDonald's headquarters need to stop clowning around and figure out what they are going to do to protect their employees in the future.